Well, this is exciting. I don't usually release content unless I've got something to show you, so I figured I would finally get another car on my list and show it to you. This is the Exceed Blurred. Now you'll notice the box has the Thunderfire on it as well. That's because it's the same chassis. Now I already own a Thunderfire, albeit with a different body, but I figured we'd do something special with this Blur. It's the buggy. It's the same chassis, just a different wheels, tires, body. Crack open the box here. I may have already made sure everything is in there. We'll set that aside for later. And there she is. No decals, no frills really, just Nitro RC car. This is probably one of the only ones you can still buy brand new, this and the Thunderfire, because they're made by HSP, which is also the same as the Red Cat. If Red Cat was to make them, Red Cat sells a lot of HSP's vehicles, like the Nitro Volcano. Let's see here. So this guy, of course, has the 0.7 engine, the small fuel tank that I don't particularly like on my Thunderfire because it doesn't last very long. But my main interest in it is that the drive lane is right down the center. You see that big old spur gear right there in the middle. So the electronics can be moved. Now, if you're wondering why we need to move the electronics, I'll show you here in a second. So, looking at this car, I mean, with the top off, you can see it's the same as the Thunderfire. Just the Thunderfire has double shocks, effectively, in different tires. But I didn't want to do what I'm about to do with a Thunderfire because honestly, I like buggies. But we have a buggy with electronics that can be moved, as I said before, and a big old envelope full of what? All knives. Full of extras, not just suspension parts. Air filters, exhaust headers, the clutch bell, there's some servo linkages, and you're thinking, well, what in the world do you need that for? The car's already got it. Do you expect to break it? No. I expect to install a second engine on my HSP or Exceed Blur. So, if we move the electronics, which I fully intend to do, boom, second engine time. Should mount just fine with the extra space. Because this spur gear is dead center, I'll probably have to do something with the servo, like turn it up sideways and get it out of the way. But this engine has enough width on the chassis to mount, because that drivetrain is perfectly symmetrical down the middle. That's why I've chosen to do this double engine with this chassis specifically. Now, the biggest downside is that I do not have enough room for a bigger fuel tank. So we are going to be like 3-minute long drive times with both engines. But it should be really cool, which is, I mean, honestly, that's what I'm here for, is pretty cool stuff. So we'll see if I can't get that started, and stay tuned for that. Okay, so I've already ran into my first hiccup. The collar for the flywheel that it said would work on their website does not, with the flywheel that they said would work on their website. So, basically going to drill out the inside of the flywheel just enough to sit on the perch of this, and 4 millimeters. Stack, probably be able to find something, or even cut this down to work to 4 millimeters to space out behind that, which is kind of annoying because that wasn't in their parts list. But it's this right here, this collar. Anyways, I'm not too worried about it. I've done some dumb stuff making my own collars and flywheel braces and such with my other custom projects, so we'll just knock that out off camera and come back to continue assembling the clutch. I'm just putting the clutch together and putting the mount on it to make sure that, you know, I've got the dimensions right, and I've got a shot at least of fitting it on that Blair without completely messing up the entire operation. So we'll make sure it fits before we go any further. Alright, well, that was pretty easy. Took the collar, shaved a little bit down vertically, and on the back of the flywheel, it's a 22/64 drill bit to just kind of give it that cone shape to squish down just a little bit on there. As far as the wobble, we'll take care of that with a washer underneath the pilot shaft for the clutch bell. That guy right there. So let's keep on trucking. Right, so I've got the clutch mostly on there. Don't have the bearings for it, those are still on the way, but that is where the clutch will sit, so that'll give me a good idea of how far forward I need to put this. Almost certainly we'll have to move the steering servo here, but hopefully not the... Well, no, I'll probably have to move the throttle servo, whatever. We're going to move what we need to move. I'm going to take this receiver box off because basically all of my electronics are going to be something different than what's in here. And we'll rearrange all of this junk and see where we can set this engine up. Well, I didn't videotape it because frankly that was boring and I wasn't going to make you watch it, but here it is. It's feasible. The engine sits all the way on the chassis. There's room for the exhaust stack out the side. This one's probably going to be up and over and out the rear, something like that. But basically, this top plate is going to have to be cut. I think this is the fastest I've ever reached a point of no return with a build in the first, gosh, I've been working on this for 20 minutes. So this will have to be cut. The servo will definitely have to be at least rotated in some way. But I mean, I wouldn't be doing this if I wasn't confident in my abilities. So we'll cut this sheet here, see what we can do to the servo, and come right back. So just running into, one thing after another. I figured I'd strip the rest off the chassis as well, the fuel tank, the steering setup, the electronics, the dog bones and all that, just so I've got room to make sure I can put this on and build everything else back around it. So putting the motor on here runs into an issue. Not sure if you can see it here. There's a gap, and the gap's there because the brake, that little guy right there, hits before the engine can make contact. So, like any standard mad mini Nitro RC scientist, we'll just flip the whole thing and put the brake in the front. Yeah. So, brake's going up there now. And I'll actually move these so that the spur gear stays in its orientation, and hopefully that will give us the kind of brake clearance we want. Might be able to mount the throttle and the steering servo side by side vertically. Two birds with one stone, man. Well, so I did actually find some bearings. Thank you, Latrax, for the engine here, so I can actually pretty accurately mount this. So it's going right there. You'll notice I've done away with the entire idea of even saving the brake cam. It didn't work in the front. I couldn't get it to fit in the back. So basically, it's the two pads with the disc, and this sits at an angle. I'm going to attach another bar from here to the throttle servo, and when it pushes, it just wedges that disc. And I mean, it's just as good as the original brake. Not quite as much surface area, but it's still really good feeling grab. Anyways, so that'll sit right there, attached to a push rod. Probably have the throttle servo sitting up on top here in front of the shock tower. So we got that figured out. Now I'm going to set this engine on here. etch out the spot and drill the holes. Getting this thing mounted in one day, man, that's crazy, but we'll knock it out. Okay, this is looking absolutely bonkers. I love it. So we've got actually the stock steering servo here fit in its original location without interfering with the drivetrain, which I was really happy about. So I can reuse the front mount there, and I'll try to, I guess, print a rear mount, but it just barely clears under that gear. I mean, it's less fractions of a millimeters is the kind of clearance we're talking about. But right, both clutch bells spin. We've got positive engagement, and the exhaust manifold fits up there. Not sure what I'll do. I think I'll flop the exhaust around and cut it down here so it's a pipe facing backwards, and do a silicone loop around to the side, so I could do like I was honestly thinking like another muffler stacked directly on top of this, so it's like a double tip. But we'll see how that turns out. Either way, this is not going to be able to drive very long. This is going to be absolute piss poor on the miles per gallon for sure. But it's a second engine. It's mounted. Some room up here for radio gear. You know, I've got some extra space back here for like a battery too, if I need to, maybe the receiver. I was worried about these mounts here. That's where the stock battery box went for like a top plate. But this chassis is curled up along the edge, and I mean, there's really no discernible flex to it, front or rear. So just a slab like this it's going to work out just fine, I think. But anyways, I'm at a stopping point for today. That's why I'm rambling. But we've got 2 engines on this itty bitty little chassis. Hope you like it. I hope you subscribe, and hope to see you again when I knock this thing out and finish it. Thanks for watching.